Hello everyone and welcome back to Brussels Movie Reviews, the show where I review stuff that's mostly pretty good and maybe one of the best movies of all time, or a movie that absolutely sucks and is probably one of the worst movies of all time and no one should ever see. Um, Now before I get on to the review, I want to mention a few things. One is that you guys may notice I don't have one my hat on, and two, I don't have my headset on me. Actually, this is the headset right here, as you can see right there. I'm trying out a new method where I just lay the headset on my laptop and I just have the mic standing up like this. Um, so, leave down in the comments down below if you like this sort of method or you just want to see me continue using the headset on my head. The second thing is you may notice that my TV is not there. That will actually be explained in another video, which will be an updated room tour. Um, I've done some renovations, and so and one of those changes was moving my TV from right there, and I got a whole new TV as well. So that will all be explained in that room tour video. But anyway, that aside, uh, let's get on to the actual review. And as you guys can tell by the title and the thumbnail, today I will be discussing Bohemian Rhapsody. This is a film that, I've, initially when this film came out, I never thought about it too much. I just thought, oh, it's another generic, new movie. I don't really want to watch it. But recently, I've been getting actually a lot into the band, which I will discuss in a bit. So, with that being said, um, with my recent fascination with the band that it's based on, which if you guys have heard of the movie or seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But those who haven't seen it or haven't heard of this film yet, I will explain what this band is and over the course of this review, discuss how they got started and you know how they became so successful. So, um, let's get on to some of the specs. So this was made on a budget of $52 million. Domestically, it made over 216 million, and worldwide, it made over 404 million. I don't know, 904 million. So this was an overwhelming success, which honestly is no surprise. Which again, if you guys have heard about this film and you know what the band or which band it's talking about, you know exactly why it was so successful. And this was directed by Bryan Singer, who, if you guys are film fans, you guys may remember that he directed the first two X-Men films, along with, I believe, Days of Future Past and Superman Returns. So, he has done some good films, even some great superhero films, as well as some mediocre to probably bad to some of you. Um, and giving him the choice to direct this film was kind of surprising initially when I was researching it. Like, really? The guy who did X-Men and Superman is doing a rock and roll film? Like a biopic? So, that caught me a little off guard, and this was released on November 2nd of 2018. Um, so, if you guys haven't heard of this film or don't know what the band about it is, um, you know, this song and which is also the title of the film, was made by Queen, and Queen is one of the biggest rock bands ever made, or that was ever was. In fact, I'm such a huge fan of them. Recently, I actually got their platinum collection, which is basically their greatest hits 1, 2, and 3. Um, you know, have you know basically their a lot of their greatest hits, along with collaborations, like especially on this third album. I'm not gonna go too into depth about this because I gotta I gotta talk about the film, not the band, but they did good stuff. I mean, like especially on this first greatest hits album. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody, the title of the film. Another one bites the dust. Killer Queen, Don't Stop Me Now. the Flash theme, the theme for Flash Gordon, Seven Seas of Rye, We Will Rock You, and We Are the Champions, just to name a few. Um, and they did such collaborations with like Elton John and I think even David Bowie on the which appears on the third album. It's insane of how popular they were. Um, but again, like I said, I'm not really here to talk about the band itself. I'm here to talk about the film that it's based on, which again, Bohemian Rhapsody. Um, Now the plot of the film is basically um, the Queen's history from its initiation in 1970 up until their famous concert at Live Aid in 1985. But to go a little bit more into depth about it, Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of Queen, defies stereotypes and convention to become one of history's most beloved entertainers. The band's revolutionary sound and popular songs lead Queen's enormous success and rise in the 1970s. After leaving the group to pursue a solo career, Freddie reunites with the band Queen for the ben, be, I can't speak for the benefit concert Live Aid, resulting in one of the greatest performances in rock and roll history. So yeah, like I said, this is basically a biopic that runs for basically 2.5 hours, basically discussing quote unquote Queen's entire history from, like I said, from their initiation in 1970 up until their Live Aid concert in 1985. Now, I will, I'm going to discuss, since this is a, historical film, I will be discussing, the historical inaccuracies about the film. Because there is quite a lot. Um, and also we'll just be talking about, just some minor things that they changed. Um, I'm not gonna go too into depth about them. Like I said, I'm only gonna be mentioning how they changed it. But if you want to know the really in depth, uh, really into depth about Queen's history, I recommend the two videos down in the description below by the channel History Buffs. That's how I got actually all these changes from exactly. Their channels, great with covering history. They did not only Bohemian Rhapsody, which I think is their latest one, as of now. Well, as of this recording, but they also did Captain Phillips, The Untouchables, some mafia films like Goodfellas and Casino, and The Irishman, and then some other films as well like I think what was it? They did westerns like Dances with Wolves and Tombstone. Um, and so yeah, so really go and check that channel out. For every single historical film that I do, I will leave the link to the video from their channel because their channel is fantastic. But yeah, I first actually, you know what? Let's go into the changes because I'll talk about the actors and how I think they performed, or how they did after I discuss the changes. But without further ado, let's get on to the changes. So, the film opens up back in with ironically what happens at the end of the film, which is obviously the Live Aid concert, and Queen are about to go out and you know, do their performance, but it's shown through Freddie Mercury's eyes, and it's just a typical day for Freddie Mercury. He gets up out of bed, feeds the bajillion cats that he has, gets in his Rolls Royce, and drives over to the concert. And you see, like, the people setting up over the credits, and just a general, um, just a general scope of what this concert was. And this is when the real movie begins, where flashbacks to 1970, and we see Freddie Mercury, also known at this point as Fruc Bolsoria. I think that's how you say it, Fruc Bolsoria. Sorry if I butchered that name. It's a very weird name, but anyway, it shows him working at Heathrow Airport, which this is the first kind of historical inaccuracy about the film. Yes, Freddie Mercury did work at Heathrow Airport, but it wasn't back in 1970. It was actually around 1964 when he worked there as a teenager. And the funny thing about that is when Heathrow Airport actually learned that the film was gonna, pay tribute to the original, like to Freddie's original job, they did a dance tribute to Freddie Mercury, to the song "I Want to Break Free." Um, and they have like the quote unquote Freddie Mercury like mustache on. I think you can find it on YouTube. I could probably put the link down in the description below if you guys really want to check it out. It's ironic that they chose "I Want to Break Free." But also I think that would they really do the tribute if they saw how their baggage handlers you know are treated or look like or act like in this film, because uh, this is one part I don't want to get too into, but that is unfortunately the kind of attitude that's shown in the film is true, because that's how you know people from like England and stuff like that, how they kind of acted back then. I don't know if that's 100% true, from the information I got, it really kind of is. Um, so after Freddy gets home and he says that he's going to the pub, that's when we get really our first real string of inaccuracies. Because really this scene right here, when he goes to the pub, is where a lot of inaccuracies appear. Because before I guess I'll just go. I'll go through this in order. Um, but at the beginning of the scene, before he actually goes down, he meets. He sees a girl that he kind of falls for. And we find out later that her name is Mary Austin. Now, this isn't true. He didn't meet Mary Austin before, like, before he watched a concert in a pub. In fact, I don't think they met until after Freddie formed Queen. So that's one thing right there. The second thing is um, well, that's after he sees Mary Austin and kind of has a quick chit chat with her, he heads down to the pub area where he sees Smile playing, which has the lead guitarist and drummer for that would be in Queen later, which is Brian May and Roger Taylor, with their original singer, which I forgot the name of exactly. I will have to look at that. Actually, I could probably look at that right now, so I'll be back real quick. So the original singer for Smile was Tim Staffel, and he in the film it's shown that he leaves Smile to go join another band called Humpy Bong, which yes, that was a real band back then. And that is true. He did leave Smile to go join Humpy Bong after, I believe, the drummist for that band had asked him if he wanted to join, and so yeah, he left Smile and joined Humpy Bong. But the inaccuracy with this scene is that it's shown that the same night that Tim Staffel left, Freddie Mercury found Brian and Roger, and they kind of made a friendship right there, and then they decided to close down, or they decided to not be a part of Smile anymore and join Freddie Mercury's band called Queen. Now, yes, this did happen around 1970, but it didn't all occur in one night. it took, it was several months before Freddie ever did that. Um, and Freddie Mercury didn't just walk up to Brian and Roger and say, "Hey, can I just join your band?" It was actually Tim Staffel who introduced Freddie to the band. Um, and as he brought Freddie to a small rehearsal, and immediately Freddie clicked with the band. He, you know, gave them advice, saying like, "I like how you did this, but change this and this." Um, and so yeah, Freddie did not just walk up to them as it's shown in the film. Um, so after that, um, after that, and after Freddie makes the band Queen and Roger and Brian join as the lead guitarist and drummer respectively, they play quote unquote Queen's first gig, um, which um, there's a couple things to mention here. Now, in the film, they said that it says that basically explains that John Deacon, who did become Queen's bass player, was their first bass player, which is not true. He was actually the fourth. It took actually, I think it took around 6 to 8 months to get before Queen got lucky with John. The other thing about the sequence is um, by this point, Freddie had long overcome his shyness on stage. The scene, in this scene, it's shown that when Freddie's trying to get the mic up, and then he yanks it out of the mic stand. That did happen, but it wasn't with Queen. It happened with his previous band Ibex, because before he formed Queen with Brian and Roger, he joined several other bands, including Ibex. All of them didn't really work out for him, and then obviously he formed Queen. So that scene did happen, but like I said, it wasn't with Queen; it was with Ibex. But by the time that Queen formed, Freddie had, like I said, he had long overcome his shyness, and he was flying up and down the stage. Um, and um, and so yeah, their first gig pretty much goes swell in the film, and then after that, it cuts to, I believe, around either it's still in 1970 or 1971, where Queen had been touring up and down the UK for a long time at this point. Um, um, and they're like, well, what are we gonna do now? We've only been doing pubs and college gigs, so like this isn't gonna go anywhere. But obviously, what the band wanted to do was like the big concert, like actual regular concerts. Um, Now in the film, it's shown that the band sold Roger's van so that they could book a studio to make an album. Now, this is kind of true, but not how the film portrays it. So basically, a friend of Brian May, was setting up a new recording studio, and he wanted a loud band to play. And so uh, Brian suggested, why not my band Queen? And um, in the film, like I said, they booked a studio and recorded an album. Now, that isn't true. They only recorded a demo, not a whole album like the film says. But I believe it is true that a couple of producers from Trident Studios came down to the recording session and saw Queen playing, and they got them. So I believe that is true. Um, um, the next scene is you know, the next scene that has a bit of that's historically inaccurate is when the band is at a restaurant and they meet John Reed, who wants to bring them out to the public. Now this is, I believe, this scene did did happen in history, but it wasn't John. It wasn't John Reed. It, he wasn't their first manager. Um, it was actually Norman Sheffield who managed them from 1971 to 75. Well, actually, no, it's either 75 or 70. I think it's from 1971 to 73. Um, and so why was there no mention of Sheffield? Well, that's because the band. I think the story goes that they signed a contract, which I think it said for £50 a week, um, all their record sales would go just to Trident Studios and their manager. None of it would go to the band. Um, and so the band, after noticing that, you know, they weren't getting any money from the records, they got, you know, pissed because they weren't making any money. And they basically, um, they went with John Reed as their manager. Um, After Norman Sheffield threatened to sue them for defamation. So John Reed was like, "Hey, I'll deal with the legal stuff and Norman Sheffield. You guys just go and make an album. Just go and make your music." Um, um, the next scene, during the diner scene, John Reed states that he wants to wants Queen to go public. Like he wants them, he wants to bring them out to the public, and he does this by getting them on Top of the Pops, which was it was a it was a like a music chart show that would get popular bands and let them play. Now, this scene, this kind of like like when Freddie meets Brian and Roger at the pub at the beginning. This scene has like multiple inaccuracies, which I'll go over again very quickly. The first thing is well, not really inaccuracies, just more like annoyances. Um, but the first one is that um, a BBC executive comes up to the band and says it is going to be playback, and the band get pissed about it. He's like, "Why? We could play our own like instruments, right?" And he's like, "Well, that's BBC. That's how we do it." And the band are pissed about it. Um, now they now in real life they weren't pissed about it because they knew they were pissed about it, but they understood why. And even then, they couldn't really do anything about it because they had to record a special backing track the night before, so that they could play that over their performance. So the way that the film shows it is that the BBC are just a whole bunch of idiots and jerks for not letting Queen play live, which isn't true. They just you know like it makes sense because like I said, if you want more information, go and check out the History Buffs reviews for this section. It's in part 1, but basically it like you don't want back then you don't want BBC guys who don't know how you sound to start trying to play it live, because then you're gonna start messing it up and it's gonna sound horrible. So just have it playback and you'll be fine. And the second thing about this is that the first song that they played on Top of the Pops wasn't Killer Queen as shown in the film. The original song was actually Seven Seas or Rye. But the reason why that isn't shown is because well, basically the original broadcast of Seven Seas of Rye on Top of the Pops was lost in the BBC archives. Their second appearance, they played Killer Queen, and that's the one that everyone's more familiar with. That one, I can understand why they changed it, because again, no one really remembers the the first appearance on Top of the Pops and playing Seven Seas of Rye. Everyone more remembers the Killer Queen appearance, so that makes sense for them to change it. Um, Now, then it just shows after that. It shows a montage of them, I believe, touring America. Um, like around 1974, their three albums from Triton Studios, which I believe were named Queen, Queen Two, and then Sheer Heart Attack, were very successful. And I believe Sheer Heart Attack was actually was in the top 10 in 1974. So you know, Queen were like at the top of their their rise to superstardom had begun. Um, like they were popular, but not like an over like a huge success yet. Like they were a popular band, they were just not as popular as some of their other bands at the time. The next scene is uh because by this point they switched from Trident to EMI. Now again, if you guys want more information about it, go to the History Buffs video. Um, but basically, um, they approach EMI executive Ray Foster with their pitch of their fourth album, A Night to the Opera, which is considered by most Queen fans their finest album. And they pitch their idea and they get the green light to go and do it. Now there's a couple things here that I want to mention. Ray Foster is a fictional character made for the film. Now, the filmmakers said that it was based off of one specific EMI executive, which I don't really remember the name of, but really he's just a mixture of really all of the main EMI executives. So really, it's just they reduced all of their complaints down to one person, really just for time length, which I can understand that. And the second thing was that in the scene they kind of needed the film basically explains that they needed permission in order to make A Night at the Opera, which isn't true. They got free reign to make whatever kind of album that they wanted. All they had to do was make sure it didn't suck, which granted is a lot of pressure on a band who are broke, and have no money, and so basically if A Night at the Opera failed, then Queen would have broken up. That would have been it. That was the real stakes behind making A Night at the Opera, not the little speech in the film that Freddie gives about opera, or like that's just straight up BS. So that is, ugh, that is just complete BS. Um, so Queen, the band went to a farmhouse to record their album. Now, this is true. It may have looked like that, EMI were being cheap about it, but this was actually one of the best studios at the time, and especially the fact that you could sleep there, was, a big selling point about the studio was that you could just basically just live there for how long you make the album. Now in the video in the History Buffs video, it said that they were there for 2 weeks working on the album, which honestly I don't think is true. I think they were trying to say 2 months, but basically they were there for a very not a very very long time, like a year. But it was a few months that they lived there, and they had some colorful arguments about certain things. One that the film actually brings up, which is, I believe, mostly true, but I think it just took place in a different setting, and some of the things are a little have been changed a bit. So basically, there's a scene while they're making a night at the opera where they are discussing Roger's car song, "I'm in love with my car." Now, this argument is technically true, where they were, discussing back and forth about like really, do we really want this song? Like, do we really want to make it? Apparently Roger got the last laugh at the end by locking himself in a cupboard, or like in the closet, and refusing to get out unless his song "I'm in Love with My Car" would be on the B side of the Bohemian Rhapsody single, um, which, um, you know, I the band did agree to that, and so yeah, but yeah, basically that argument is technically true. It's just some things they changed about it, like the setting. In the film, it's set in their kitchen at the farm, but like I said, it's like but in real life, it happened I think in one of the recording studios, and Roger hid himself in a cupboard to, just um, force the band in order to let his song be on the B side of the Bohemian Rhapsody single. Um, um, and when they get back from making their album, they unanimously they all agreed that their next single would be a Bohemian Rhapsody, and everyone at EMI was just like, "Why this song?" And I believe all the complaints that Ray Foster gives in the film is all the is most of the complaints and like questions that EMI were giving about we're giving like all the executives were giving Queen. Like everyone at EMI was like, "Why this song?" Um, and there's a funny scene in the film where Ray Foster is like going for like different songs, and he mentions "I'm in Love with My Car," and everyone's like, "Are you like, is this guy serious? Like really that one?" And Roger's like, "I told you guys." Um, um, but yeah, basically in the film Ray Foster's like, no one's gonna play this on the radio because, granted, Bohemian Rhapsody is almost 6 minutes long. Um, so at the time, most radio stations didn't play songs over like 3 minutes. And so Ray Foster's like, um, anything over 3 minutes, the radio stations won't play it. Period. So either it's in, "I'm in Love with My Car," or that's it. No single. And basically the band are like, "Well, screw you. We're walking," and they leave the studio. Like they leave his office. Now, that is not true. They they never threatened to walk out because, like I said earlier, they're like literally the band leaving or like quitting or not was depending on a night at the opera. So really, um, they couldn't they couldn't just walk out. Now, um, um, there is one like tiny little part about the scene before the next scene, which I'll talk about. That is it is true. It just kind of like with discussing Roger's car song. It didn't take place at the setting it does in the film. Now in the film, after Queen walk out and their business manager Jim Beach walks out with them. Um, like Ray Foster's like complaining about like, oh, bugger them, they ain't gonna get it gold, like they're not gonna make it anywhere. And then a brick flies for like crashes through his window, and um you know uh and they start throwing slurs like back at each other. Now that scene technically did happen in history, um but um it wasn't at the brick wasn't thrown at Ray Foster's office because one, he's a fictional character, and two, it wasn't at any of my executives' office. It was actually at John Reed's place, which I don't. Again, I'm not gonna go into the story too much, but basically, um, him and Freddie were having dinner, and Freddie mentioned that he did an interview with like a random interviewer, um, And John Reed was like, I thought I told you not to do interviews. And he's like, oh, it's fine. Like, it's alright. And John's like, well, screw you. If you don't work within my roles, you're not working with me. And he left. He came home, turned on the TV, and then a brick came through his window. And he's like, and Freddie Mercury is standing outside of his window, like, you don't ever fucking leave me again. And so, yes, that, like I said, that did happen. But um, it wasn't at Ray Foster's window. It was at John Reed's. The next scene after that is so remember how Ray Foster said that it wasn't going to be that no one will play it on the radio? Well, it just so happened that Freddie had a friend in Kenny Everett's who had a radio station, and as it's played in the film, Freddie was on Kenny Everett's show, and he gave Kenny a copy of Bohemian Rhapsody, and cheekily told him not to play it. And Kenny's like, "What's wrong with the song?" And he's like, "Nothing's wrong with it at all. It's just the fact that it's over 6 minutes long." And he's like, 6 minutes? You have to be mad to play it. Well, you have to be bollocks and positively forbidden. And Freddie's like, "Well, let's hear it." Now, in history, it's not exactly confirmed how Kenny got a copy of it, because there's multiple conflicting different stories. I believe Brian said that Kenny stole a copy and played it on the radio. Another one is that Kenny Everett came over to their studio and they gave him a copy and told him not to play it, and he played it like at his house like 20 times before he played it on the radio. But really, it doesn't really matter how Kenny got it, because the chemistry between Kenny and Freddie is absolutely true. Like, they were friends, and I think they were friends up until what happened to Freddie Mercury later on in life. And so their chemistry between, like, their friendship in the film is absolutely true. Which really, I think, another thing, one thing that I feel like, well, not personally me, but a lot of, some people thought that could have been expanded on a bit in this film, was, once, Kenny Everett starts playing Bohemian Rhapsody on the radio, you see, like, all these reviews about, like, I think both the album, A Night at the Opera, and Bohemian Rhapsody, the single, start coming up, and it's like all, like, these harsh, quote-unquote harsh criticisms about the song. And I don't I get why people wanted to see more of that, but for me personally, I never really, like, like I said, I get why, but I just didn't really want to see it. Um, but it's just you know, I just never really thought too much about it, man. Yeah. Um, and so after that, they show a montage of Queen going to several different places around the world. And most of those concerts, I believe most of those concerts, if not all of them, did happen at some point, but they were later, like, way later on than actually shown in the film. Like, because these concerts are supposed to be happening like around like 75, 76, where, like, these concerts happened around like late 1970s and like early 80s. Funnily enough, the final one and part of the montage is them playing at Rio de Janeiro in where apparently they had like over like 530,000 people. Some reports saying that over maybe 1 million, which at the time that the film states would have been amazing, but ironically, this didn't happen until January 1985, not in 1970, like 1975-76, where the film says it took place. So you can see that I can like that's like pretty obvious where it's like okay, you're just combining again a lot of Queen history into one scene. But I think the reason why they chose to clamp them all down into the early, like into the 70s is because they wanted to have this really uh, the scene between Mary Austin and Freddie about him coming out to Mary. Now, I personally think that besides the Live Aid concert at the very end, this is probably um, one of my favorite scenes. It's not my favorite scene in the whole film, because it's just one. It's actually where it took place. Isn't like it's not historically like really historically accurate, but this is really true. Um, like it was in 1976 where when Freddie Mercury came out to Mary as being gay. Now Freddie was conflicted about this for a long time, and he just didn't know when to, tell Mary Austin about it because he did genuinely love her, and saying this to her would break her heart. Um, Now, and like I said, I I think this is one of the better scenes in the film. If it and I don't really care, like it's historically inaccurate, really. But really, I don't really care because this scene is so good. Um, and then after that scene, it jumps to 1980, where Freddie Mercury has ditched the long hair and painted fingernails with the short hair and the mustache, which he's more recognized as for. And he throws one of his epic parties at his new mansion. Um, Now, this scene is, oh boy, this is not the scene itself in the film. Um, um, but like it wasn't like the film shows this extreme party that the band criticizes because it's like we don't like this is maybe a little bit too extreme. In reality, if Freddie like this party really isn't anything when you actually look up the the behind history, because they used to like Freddie used to throw like extreme parties. Like I'm not gonna go really into depth. Like I'm not gonna talk about the actual details about what was there, but holy crap, it was it was something. Um, but it like the film significantly like diminishes the quality of the party as like compared to how it was in real life. And the only reason why they did that was to have a PG-13 rating, which I mean, one you could see it right there, PG-13. Now, I think the only reason why they did that was to have a much wider audience, because maybe the newer people that are starting to get into Queen history now, maybe if it was a full on R rating, they couldn't go and see it. So diminishing the quality, like the extremeness of this party or like of the party is, I can see it and it makes sense from that point of view, but still, it's like I feel like that really they should have at least done like an extended cut that was like or an unrated cut where they just showed really to please Queen fans and like just to show that they like the more like explicit stuff, because really this party is tame by comparison. Um, um, but also the it sort of undermines about how much the band were concerned about the crowd that Freddie was hanging out with, especially Paul Prenter, who I guess you can really say is the film's villain. If you really want to like say that like this film needed a villain, you could say Paul Prenter. But I think they really went overboard on how quote unquote much of a genius he was, Because really, I don't think he was. Especially with this next scene that I'm about to talk about. It's like they, I think they went kind of overboard on it, but I just don't think that Paul Printer was such a genius as shown in the film. Especially with the scene I'm going to talk about now. He suggests to John Reed, which is Queen's manager, to have Freddie break off into a solo career because he's like, Queen, how long is that gonna last for? Um, so on a trip in Freddie's limousine, John Reed suggests to Freddie that that CBS is offering him to make a solo album, but John quickly realizes that this is all a trick by Paul Prince, the trick to break up the um and when Freddie asks him, "Are you trying to say I should break up Queen?" And he turns to Paul. And he's like, "Well, what do you think, Paul?" And Paul just turns to him like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then basically Freddie fires him on the spot and kicks him out of his limousine. Um, Now that is, and at the end of that scene, Paul Printer is like, "I warned him, not to say it," and that's a very slimy thing to do, but that is wholly not true. In fact, the way that John Lee Reed was quote unquote let go was a lot more civilized, I should say, because um, it was coming to the end of John Reed's contract, and they just wanted they thought that they could manage on their own because they also noticed that he was also managing Elton John by this point, and they thought that he was trying to focus more on Elton John than Queen, so they were like, so they basically just offered him a severance package saying we appreciate what you did, but it's come to the end of your contract and like we just have to let you go. And if you look up interviews with John Reed, he's even said it's been one of the it's one of the most gentlest parting of the ways that I've ever been a part of. Um, and um, that that's honestly probably one of my least favorite scenes in the film. It's just because it's so no, it's just ugh. But it's not really as bad as his next scene where um, Freddie mentions the fact that he was offered a deal with CBS to record a solo album, and the band get pissed when he mentions how much he's getting paid for, and they realize that he's getting paid more for this one album than what EMI is paying them for multiple albums, and they have this heated argument, and basically the film basically makes it out that Freddie broke up Queen, which is not true at all. And they make it out that he broke up Queen by going solo, which is not true because he wasn't the first one to do it. I believe um, Roger Taylor was the first one to do it, and then um, Brian May, and then John Deacon. Freddie Mercury was actually the last one to do it. So, and yet he gets the most flack for it in this movie, and it's just this movie, man, is just, that scene just really pisses me off. Um. So. Um. This is, by the way, if you're watching the History Buffs review, this is where, by this point, it would be at least in part 2. So, if you were watching both my review and the Bohemian Rhapsody History Buffs video, go on to part 2 right now. The next one is that Paul Printer never really, because the next scene shows Freddie Mercury in Munich in an '84 to work on his solo album. Now he wasn't completely isolated by Paul Printer, which we see in the film block all of his phone calls from Mary Austin, Jim Beach, and I don't. It's never shown in the film, but in history, he did. But he never. Well, in history, he never really blocked anyone's phone calls to Freddie. Um, But it is like true that he was like um he spent 2 years on his album, which is I believe was called Mr. Bad Guy, until it was released in 1985. Um, and but he just felt like that something was missing, and that was his bandmates, because like all the arguments that they had over creative differences, um, that was his that's what kind of motivated them to do what they did. But now he didn't have that anymore, so it kind of just felt like, well, what's the point in doing them? So after he finished, while he's working on his album, Mary Austin actually flies to Munich in the film to go and confront Freddie about what's going on. Now, so far, I haven't been able to figure out if this is actually true, but um, according to history, Mary Austin never flew out to Munich to confront Freddie about like what's been going on and to tell him about Live Aid, which um, he never needed anyone to tell him about Live Aid because he never wanted to do it. And neither did the rest of Queen, so they were all just like, we don't want to do this. Um, but um, but in the film, after like Mary Austin talks, like gives basically Freddie this whole speech about like we need like your family needs you, like not only like your actual family, but like Queen and me, we all need you. And he like she also mentions that he's pregnant. Um, so that's like the real like kick it up a notch for Freddie to get back into like his old self. And he basically in the film, after Mary Austin leaves and Paul comes out and is like, Freddie, what's wrong? Basically, Freddie fires him on the spot. Which, yes, Freddie did fire Paul Prenter at in the mid '80s, but it wasn't in '85. It was actually I think around January in '86, because Freddie gave Paul Prenter the keys to his house along with some money to spend over the Christmas holiday, and basically Paul threw another party and trashed the place, and that's what kind of that's what pissed Freddie off and made him fire Paul Prenter. Now, yes, Paul Prenter did friend to show to tell the world like Freddie had came out gay, and in the film we see this through a TV interview where he tells like about like all the stories like about him going to like gay bars and like snorting cocaine and stuff like that. Now it did happen that like Paul Printer did like sell Freddie's story to the presses, but it wasn't through a TV interview. He sold it, I think, to a newspaper, to like a newspaper company for like $32,000, like $32,000. And the article was called "All the Queen's Men." And it had pictures from Paul's private collection. Now, this article does actually appear in the film very briefly, to get kind of like show the reaction of the parents, like his father especially, like of like what has happened. Um, Now, this is like where like the one of the biggest like this is like one of the biggest scenes that had like a lot of a lot of historical inaccuracies, where Freddie calls Jim Beach and asks him if he wants to get the band back together to do Live Aid. And again, I don't want to go into this too much because again, the History Buffs channel, they went like really into depth about this, but basically, several things here. Jim Beach never had to convince Bob Geldof to to squeeze Queen into the lineup for the Live Aid concert. Now, really quickly, if you guys don't know who Bob Geldof is, he was a lead singer for his own band. I forgot what the band was called, but yeah, he was the lead organizer for Live Aid. And he was the one that was setting up everything, and Um, you know, um, Jim Beach was in real life was actually furious that he announced Queen in the press conference, like that Queen were going up because he never got contacted to go to ask if Queen was coming. So um, yeah, Jim Beach never needed to convince Bob Geldof to squeeze Queen in. In fact, it was actually the other way around. Bob Geldof so wanted Queen to be a part of this concert. Um, and so um, 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 also they gave they had this whole spiel about Freddie apologizing to the band about breaking up, like Queen, which we know that he never did because one, obviously he didn't break up Queen, but two, even if he did, he wouldn't really apologize for it. Um, and the whole getting back the band cliche is I'm so sick of that. Which, granted, most people, I think that was like really one of like many people's complaints about the film was that they used like so many like movies have used this trope and then they were using it for a Queen movie. It's like flat out like no, this is just borderline. Just no, you don't do this. And I totally agree with that because really, you don't like this like because if you know like who if you've done the research and you know who Freddie Mercury is and you know like the rest of the band, Freddie Mercury would have never ever apologized for. I mean, he might have said like sorry for breaking up the band, but that would have been probably it. He never went on this whole spiel about like you know like how he was like basically being rude and he wanted to bring the band back together because it never happened. So it's just so confusing and like why would you do ugh. It's like this is one of like my least favorite parts about the film because it's like you use this cliche so much and it's just so dumb. And um after they get the call of like okay we want to do like we're doing Live Aid, um then Freddie is well actually this is around well yeah I believe after they want to do Live Aid. It shows a scene of Freddie going to the hospital to see because he sees a news report of people getting AIDS. And like Freddie knew what was going on, and he even had like he knew like lovers who were getting it, and so he was initially hesitant to get to get tested. Now there's some conflicting reports about how Freddie eventually knew he got him. Some say that like the most common theory I've heard is that he originally went in 80. He got tested in 85, which he initially tested negative, and then when he went to the second time in 87, that's when he got tested positive. Um, really, I don't think it matters when he like how um like like the exact dates of like when he figured it out. The point is that when he figured out that he had AIDS, he really kept it a secret from friends and family. And another like my second favorite scene of the whole film is when they're practicing for Live Aid, and like Freddie like he's like do you guys mind? I need to tell you something. It's like they're like yeah like what's up? And he's like I got it, and I was like well, what? And he's like I got AIDS. And this scene really I think is probably the best acted scene in the whole film besides like I said earlier between like the scene between Mary Austin and Freddie where Freddie came out gay or came out to Freddie came out to Mary, um, where in this scene like he reveals to his bandmates that he has AIDS, um, and the way that the actor playing Freddie, which I'll get to in a bit, you know, played Freddie or like how he acted in the scene really pulls it off, and I think everyone else in the scene is fantastic. Um, um, and I believe that, like, I don't think this really happened until after Live Aid. But if this, and I don't even think this actually really happened. Um, but if it was true that Freddie did tell them ever that they got AIDS before Live Aid, I think this is how he would have acted, like saying like I don't like right now I don't really care about that because all I want to do right now is make music, um, and you know and do what I want, like what I was made to be, like to do, and that's to be a performer. And I think that's really a Freddie thing for him. Like that's a Freddie thing that like would have happened, and I think it's just I love it. Um, um, and then finally the Live Aid concert. Now, this scene, like I said, is probably like my favorite scene in the whole film. Because this is probably the most accurate scene in the whole film, except for like a few, for a few things. Um, Now it basically plays out mostly the same as how it's shown in the beginning, except for like a few scenes are extended, and also new scenes have been added into this final end sequence, which were obviously not in the original opening. Um, like it shows the film portrays that Bob Geldof, because the problem with Live Aid is that even though so many people were watching, only about I think uh, um like I think only like 1 million pounds were donated. Um, and then in the film it shows that Bob Geldof went like and recorded and filmed like him saying like you gotta donate now. Don't go to the pub. Just stay home, dial the number, and donate. He didn't do that before Queen went on stage. He actually did that like I think while Queen were doing their performance. And I think that um like so yeah he never um yeah, he did it after like the broadcast of him telling people to donate was the broadcast was actually shown after Queen's performance, not before. Which that's a minor, like a very minor, a very minor historical inaccuracy, which that I can overlook. Um, Another one is that um, before Queen stepped on stage, Jim Beach never raised the soundbar to make Queen the highest, sounding, like the best sounding band. Now, that did happen technically, but it wasn't Jim Beach who did it. Like no, you know, like no executive like would touch a sound system. It was actually their sound engineer. I think his name is Trip Caliph, who raised it to you know um who actually raised it up. Um, and then um, the final thing I want to mention um, is that in terms of historical inaccuracies, is that during Queen's performance there wasn't a surge of money that just happened. Like basically, yes, like I said earlier, Bob Geldof, the broadcast never happened until after Queen, you know, did their um, did their performance. But yes, the money did start coming in. I think around like 10 to I think 20 million pounds were donated. Um, and like I said, there wasn't like a whole surge of it while Queen were performing. Um, so that is a tiny again the kind of like how the broadcast happened before Queen went on stage. Um, it's a small inaccuracy that I can look over. Um, and so yeah, that's really all the historical inaccuracies that I could find about Bohemian Rhapsody. Um, Really, the only things I can talk about now is the cast. The Blu-ray slash 4K that came out, and then the fun fact, the music besides the Queen music, like the actual composed music for the film, and then my final rating. So let's get on to the cast. So um first off we have Rami Malek as who plays Freddie Mercury. Now, I think his mannerisms and how he delivers some scenes are absolutely great, and it's absolutely like I almost think like it's Freddie on screen. But most of the time, I don't really see like I think he does a great performance, and I honestly do think that he deserved best best actor for this film. I just think that the problem is the lines that he has to say aren't Freddie Mercury, um, and that's nothing like wrong with the actor. It's just the script. Except for some scenes, like I said, the when Freddie comes out to Mary Austin, along with him saying like telling the band that he has AIDS. Those are like very Freddie moments, and I think that those scenes work perfectly. But other scenes, it's like that is no. Um, we have Gwim Lee. I'm so sorry if I butchered that name as Brian May. He did fantastic, along with Ben Hardy as Roger Taylor and Joseph Marzillo as John Deacon. They all pulled off their mannerisms perfect. I just think that again, the one thing that you know ruins it kind of is the script. We have Lucy Bonaton as Mary Austin. She does great with the stuff that she's given. Alan Leach as Paul Prenter. Um, Again, I think he does great with the stuff that he's given. We have Aidan Glennon as John Reed and Tom Hollander as Jim Beach. They both do you know great as usual, along with the rest of the characters. We have Aaron McCucker as I think that's that's Freddie's eventual lover. Like by the time that they do the Live Aid concert. Um, uh, Ace Bahati and uh, Melissa um, Mal- Malika Das. I'm so sorry if I butchered those names. They play Bamey and Jer Bosora, which, or I believe they Freddie's parents. They do good with the scenes that they're given. We have Dickie Bean as Kenny Everett. He does great with like the one scene that he has in the film. And then finally we have Demont Murphy as Bob Geldof. He pulls off the he pull like like with Rami Malek. He pulls off the mannerisms about Bob Geldof, but he doesn't really act as well. Which that one I can understand more because really Bob Geldof, you've seen like interviews with him and like seen like clips of him. He's a very like he's one of those guys that like literally almost like every sentence that he says he just curses. So that makes sense. But like yeah. Um, Now the Blu-ray slash 4K edition or the releases of the film I think are great. The picture looks good. The one thing I think about the film that they could have really like improved upon is the Live Aid concert itself. Not saying that the actual scene is like bad. Like the scene is absolutely amazing. But the one problem that I have with it is that it doesn't cover the whole Live Aid concert. Well, luckily on home media releases, they include the complete Live Aid movie performance, like as a special feature. This is the complete 20-minute concert, which I believe it go. I know the first song is um a Bohemian Rhapsody, and then I know that the last song I think is We Are the Champions, um, but I think somewhere between there is We Will Rock You, um, um, Radio Gaga, and then I think one or two other songs in between. But basically, the like I said, the film I think only has Bohemian Rhapsody, we at the beginning, some parts. I think like some parts of Radio Gaga, all the stuff in like in between, Radio Gaga and then We Are the Champions is completely cut, and then obviously We Are the Champions is the final one. But they did film the entire like the entire concert, like the performance at Live Aid with like the characters, like the actors as their respective, band mates. So really glad that they actually included that as a special feature, and you can even see it right there. Uh, Experience the Live Aid movie performance not seen in theaters. So also we have Rami Malek becoming Freddie Mercury, the look and sound of Queen, and recreating Live Aid, which I think are only on the Blu-ray. Um, and yeah, that's really it about the Blu-ray. Um, the my fun fact that I have is did you know that because the 20th Century Fox logo, because this was made by 20th Century Fox, um, the 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 music for the fanfare is like made with like a it's like rock like equipment, like it's a guitar. You can even hear like the drums and stuff. Did you know that both the real Brian May and Roger Taylor performed the fanfare at the beginning, which I think is sick. That they actually got them to at least contribute something, which I believe there were also uh, consultants on the film. So that explains why some of the more risque things in the film or in history got cut out of the film. And the music was composed by John Ottman, which I believe he did. He might have done the first two X-Men films. I know he did Superman Returns with Bryan Singer. And I think he also did I think the Green Lantern music as well. Or that might have been James Newton Howard. I forgot which one. But the score for this film, I think, for what parts were like actual music score, I think are great. Uh, and yeah. So, final thoughts. Was this the Queen movie that I wanted to see? Now, as a film, I think this is very entertaining, and I would give this a B plus if that was the case. But as a Queen movie, I don't really think so. It's still entertaining, but I think that if they really wanted to make a Queen movie, they should have just gone a full R rating. And even then, if they had to reduce it down to a PG-13, at least make an extended cut that has all of the stuff in there. Um, you know, like for the fans at least. But I think just as a film, it is lacking. So that's why I'm gonna give this film a B minus. I think as a film, I think I really enjoyed it, and it did. I think for a new Queen fan, introducing giving them the history of Queen by this movie, I think is a good start. But if they want to know every single minute detail, just give them history videos. Like I said, the two history buff videos that I have down in the description below. Um, but yeah, that's what I'm gonna give this film. Yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know this video is super long, but that's what's gonna happen when I discuss historical films. I'm looking at the timestamp right now. We at least an hour and 14 minutes. So that's crazy. That's probably one of my longest, and not the longest video movie review I've ever did. So yeah. If you guys like this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down there, or just click on my face over here, I believe, to go to my channel and hit that subscribe button over there. And click over here, I believe, again, to check out my previous two reviews. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for next week's video for the Big Hero 6 review, and stay tuned for later on today, where I'm going to have another video out, which you guys have seen my 5-year anniversary channel, or video, you guys know it would be a ranking video. So, see you guys then. Live longer, prosper, out.